All right, time to start the webinar. Okay, the webinar has started. I'm just going to give a second or two people to join in. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this professional learning opportunity. I'm Angela Lazar, Digital Project Coordinator from NCEA, and I'll be facilitating this webinar today. Just a few things as everyone's joining in. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A window. You can hover your mouse over the screen and a pop-up box will pop up on the bottom and you'll see a Q&A section. You can click that and submit your question there or answers. We will monitor the questions and try to answer them within the allotted time period. And we'll leave some time at the end of the session as well for any questions. Also, I'll share a link in the chat. It's a link to our online survey, and it allows you to receive a certificate of completion for today's webinar. So for today's webinar, Finding Wellness in the Midst of Advent Season, 4 things to focus on for well-being: rest, resiliency, ownership, and gratitude. We will learn how to support teachers and students' feelings and emotions in Catholic schools, discover ways to stay calm and happy during the busy Advent season with simple practices like resting and being thankful. Our guests today are Whitney Stovall and Julie Emery Johnson. So please go ahead and introduce yourselves. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us. Always love being with you. I'm Julie Emery Johnson. I am a National Partnership Director for Frenzy, and I'm joining you today from Birmingham, Alabama. We'll tell you a little bit more about ourselves in a minute.
Yeah, and I'm Whitney Stovall. I'm Catholic School Partnership Specialist here at Frenzy, and I am joining from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you being here today. So before we get started into your lovely presentation, let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we come before you, seeking your grace for our mental health, for teachers and students in Catholic schools. Grant them the strength to navigate challenges, peace in times of stress, and resilience in the face of adversity. May your love and understanding permeate our school communities, fostering compassion, empathy, and a sense of belonging. Bless us with the wisdom to prioritize emotional and physical well-being and to create an environment where everyone feels valued and supported. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you so much, ladies. You can go ahead and take it away.
Thank you.
All right, Julie, here we go.
Okay, welcome everyone. Our webinar today is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to be focusing on wellness in the midst of this busy season. And I hope that so far so good. I know we're all counting down the days until Christmas break. This may be your last week of school, or at least your last week of traditional instruction. I'm not sure what everybody's schedules are. We were just talking about that before the webinar. Some schools are getting out, it sounds like, this week, and some early next week. But either way, this time of year is super busy. And we're just so thankful for you for taking the time to be with us today, either live or if you're watching the recorded webinar, welcome as well.
Absolutely.
So a little bit more about us. I am Julie Emery Johnson. I am in Birmingham. I was the former superintendent of the Diocese of Birmingham in Alabama. Before that, curriculum director. Before that, taught for many, many years. And I came to Frenzy and to this important topic of wellness and friendship for adults and children through my research in collective teacher efficacy and supportive leadership, and really looking at those pieces, and fell in love with the work that we're doing here, and think that the information that we have to share is just helpful for everybody. But it's especially important, I think, to spend time thinking about these things through the lens of an educator, of being a teacher. So we hope that you find a connection to what we're talking about today and that it blesses you.
Yeah. And I'm Whitney Stovall, like I said, and I serve as Catholic School Partnership Specialist at Frenzy. And my background is in Catholic education. I served for 10 years as a school counselor in Catholic schools across the state of Tennessee. And now I get the joy to partner with Catholic educators as you are looking. Honestly, as a school counselor, I was also trying to figure out how to teach friendship skills and social emotional skills to my kiddos through the lens of faith. And so really landed here with that passion and that as my background. And so I'm excited to dig into this topic today. It's something that's so important for all of us. And in the midst of the busyness, we thank you for taking time to spend with us this afternoon. And so with that in mind, let's kind of dig into what our goal is for today. And so admittedly, this time of year is marked by hustle and bustle, right? And it's often accompanied by feelings of stress or feeling overwhelmed. And I think as educators, that goes for us both in our personal lives, our professional lives. But as Catholics, we know this is also such a time of rejoicing and anticipation, right? And so our purpose today is really for us to just recognize what all we carry, all that this time of year holds, and hopefully for us to take a collective, deep breath at the end of this. Just acknowledging where we are and leaning into really the reason of the season, if you will. And so our hope is just that we can intentionally embrace the peace and the joy of the Advent season in the throes of all the responsibilities that we carry, just through leaning into simple practices such as rest, resiliency, ownership, and that practice of gratitude. And so our hope is that we can all, ourselves included, Julie, make that commitment for us in these coming weeks to focus wholeheartedly on the imminent arrival of Christ. And really opening our hearts to all that he has in store for us. So our hope that you will walk away with some nuggets of wisdom and hopefully a couple of things that you can take and practice in the coming weeks.
That is our hope and prayer for you. One of the things we often say at Frenzy is that you have to name it to tame it. And so we are going to give you 1 minute, and you can use that Q&A box. If you want to share, you don't have to share. You can just write it down and keep it to yourself. But we want to ask you how you're feeling. What are you holding right now? What are all the things that you're trying to juggle and carry and, deal with and keep the list of? And how are you caring for yourself in the midst of all of this? So we are going to just put a minute on the clock. And as I said, if you're comfortable, go ahead and type that in the Q&A area. And if you want to just keep it to yourself, we respect that as well.
And if you're joining us watching the recording later, use this time to just think and self-reflect.
Okay, that alone gives me stress. It sounds so.
Can you hear it?
It's like the time bomb going off. But
Yeah.
Okay, well, we just want to take a minute and name a few common answers that we get on this and just kind of put these things out in the world. We know that you have the weight and responsibility of the students that you serve and the school that you work in. We know that you're working, preparing yourself for this season, both emotionally and spiritually and literally, like trying to get all the decorations up or make all the parties or social obligations that come this time of year, as well as your commitments to just your regular life and to your family. And so we want to acknowledge that sometimes we act like everything is joyful and happy, and really we're carrying a lot and it's weighing us down. So just naming that, we think, does help. It makes that connection. And then we hope that as you make your way through these next few minutes with us, you're going to start to recognize some ways that we suggest you can care for yourself. But if you do have any helpful tips, we're always open for those too. So don't hesitate to pop those in the Q&A area. I just want to go ahead and dive into the 4 areas that we're going to think about today. We're in the midst of the Advent season, and as we are, we're going to think about 4 practices for improved wellness. If you're feeling weighed down by the busyness and pressures of this time of year, you're not alone. But we want you to be able to stop and acknowledge where you are and engage in the practices, and just really lean in to the joy and calm and peace of this season. And so the first one that we're going to recommend is rest. The second one is resiliency. The third is ownership, which might need a little bit of explaining. And don't worry, we're going to talk around each of these. And the final one is gratitude. What we want for you is to work on these new healthier habits, not just in the Advent season, but to be able to carry them with you into the new school year and into the new physical year, the second semester of your school year, and just help yourself and help your students by keeping these at front of mind. And everything we're going to talk about today really does translate really well to classrooms. So you're talking about it knowing that you're about to have a break and you're going to have a little chance to catch your breath and work on yourself and just kind of, care for yourself. But we know that you are always caring for others and students. And so just know that these things are going to be evergreen as far as helping maybe keep front of mind for that wellness for yourself.
Absolutely.
So let us lean into these practices so we can care better for ourselves and for others.
All right. So we're going to dig into this first practice, which is rest. I love this topic because rest has so many benefits that are proven to help our overall health, both physical, mental, emotional health. And so, but when we think about rest, often we think of, just getting a good night's sleep, or maybe I need a vacation, right? And those things do help. But really the secret here is that there are so many different types of rest that we all need in order to thrive. I don't know about you, but have you ever felt so exhausted? You're like, I'm just going to go to bed really early tonight, get 10 hours of sleep, and I know I'm going to wake up and feel better. And then you wake up and you still feel exhausted. It's kind of that chronically tired feeling that we might feel. And so what happens is we might be missing out on other types of beneficial rest that can help us thrive. I mean, as a society, I think that we all see where there's trends where we can be overstimulated, overworked, chronically tired, struggling with feelings of burnout, or even just general apathy, right? And so I want to dig into a couple types of rest, in particular 7. So I want to share about Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. She's a physician, a researcher, and an author. And her research suggests that there's actually 7 different types of rest that a person needs to kind of remedy that that rest deficit that we can tend to struggle with. So the first one is physical rest. And this is what we think of when we think of things like sleeping, taking a good nap, general relaxing, right? It's that physical rest for our body, which is incredibly beneficial. It also includes some, active physical rest, things like, gentle stretching or gentle exercise or movement. Even getting a massage, which sounds so nice, fits into that idea, of physical rest. The second type of rest that she highlights is mental rest. Now, this part of her research really spoke to me, because she says, are you the type of person whose head hits the pillow at night and your brain just turns on? Guilty. And what she says is that we're not giving ourselves enough time during the day to have these mental rest breaks, just short chunks of time where we let our brains kind of rest and recharge throughout the day. And so then when we give ourselves that rest right before we go to sleep, our brain just fires at all cylinders, right? And so she recommends things like stepping outside for a brief moment, getting some sunshine, maybe a quick walk, journaling before bed, to kind of jot those thoughts down, leave them there, let them stay there, know that they'll still be there and we can tend to them later, but to kind of give ourselves an opportunity to release them. Prayer is a powerful way, obviously, to help calm that. It's just giving ourselves the mental space to recover throughout the day. And then what's going to happen is hopefully then we can get that better physical rest because we're letting our brains have the opportunity to really shut down. The third is so important in today's world, and it's sensory rest. We live in a really overstimulating world. We have screens in all directions. There's lights, there's music, maybe you have a house or a classroom full of children or pets running around, or all the things that we have going on that are often really good things, but it can be overstimulating at times. And so she recommends finding intentional moments for sensory deprivation. So in particular, another one, guilty, I'm just like airing out all my dirty laundry here, is, is this idea of, really, particularly before bed, that 45 minutes before we go to bed, we really limit and intentionally deprive ourselves of that stimulation. It's really going to help us to find that peace in order to get that good physical rest.
That's a tough one. I'll have to give
Oh,
that one a
I
try.
know. I'm telling you, I'm airing out all my stuff here. Another part that she recommends here is grounding exercises. And we're going to give you a little format that you can use in your classrooms or for personal use at the end to do this. But grounding exercises is just the idea of focusing on our senses to bring us back to the present moment. It allows us to focus on one sense at a time so we can be fully present. So it might look like, let's name 5 things I can see, 4 things I can hear, 3 things I smell, 2 things I can touch, and 1 thing I can taste. It's really a powerful practice for combating anxiety or feelings of overwhelmed, because if we think about fear and anxiety, particularly when we're in the midst of times that might feel chaotic, those things are, fear and anxiety are typically past or future oriented. We're either ruminating over something in the past or we're worrying about something that might come in the future. But what we can really control is just right now. And so grounding is a really powerful exercise for us to just pay attention to our present moment. The 4th type of rest is emotional rest. This is when we give ourselves and others the space to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to share with one another. And, so often, I think, Julie, you hinted at this earlier, that we're kind of programmed at times to be like, I'm fine, everything's good, like I'm all good. And the reality is sometimes it's helpful for us to share like when things are not okay. And that's healthy. And, not for us to necessarily fix the other person's problem or have them fix ours, but just to sit with it with each other. Really, emotional rest is just giving ourselves and others and surrounding ourselves with other people that give us emotional peace, which to me, when I say emotional peace, that just like feels good and like something that I know I'm yearning for. The 5th type of rest is social rest. This is just understanding how you recharge. So, that idea, like, am I an introvert or an extrovert? Like, do I get my energy when I'm surrounded by other people? Or, do I need moments to myself and quiet to recharge, right? And so it's just understanding your social battery. And this can definitely get challenged this time of year with all the things that we have going on. And so just making sure, if I need to say no to something, or if I need to make sure I take care of myself in a certain way, just giving ourselves permission, to ourselves and to others, to choose social rest if we need that. The 6th way that we can rest is creative rest, which I love this. This is just giving ourselves the grace to be around things and surround ourselves with things that inspire us, to maybe take the pressure off for a minute. And this might be a helpful thing if we can find ways to, incorporate creative rest in our classrooms in this busy time of year as well. When we feel that kind of constant pressure, I don't know about you all, but sometimes I think like my problem solving abilities, my ability to like make decisions, it just isn't as strong, like it's not as clear. And so if I can give myself space to step away and come back with a clear mind, maybe I've taken time in nature to observe something beautiful, or just whatever type of creative energy that might fill you up, take time there and let it inspire you, and come back and see the difference in how you're able to engage in that task at hand. And then the final type of rest for us to engage in is spiritual rest, which, what a gift this type of rest is. This is just making sure that we take the time to rest in the Lord's presence, whether that's through prayer, saying a rosary, going to adoration or attending Mass. Maybe, using the Hallow app for, prayer meditation. There's so many ways that we can fill ourselves up through spiritual rest. And so we know this can fill us in really profound ways. And so as we've kind of reviewed these 7 types of rest, I just encourage you to take time to consider which type of rest maybe are you really good at choosing? Is there a type of rest that you feel like you're yearning for? And maybe even make a commitment or challenge yourself to make a proactive choice to invest in one of these types of rest that you think might help rejuvenate you in the midst of this busy time of year.
For me, it's definitely adoration. And I was just telling my husband this morning that I needed to make sure I cleared that time so that
Right.
I'm never too busy for that. And I'm never sorry that I make time for that. So
Let's make a commitment to
I
that
love
too.
those,
I'm the
yeah,
same way.
committing to that.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about rest. Now we're going to talk about resilience.
Yeah.
Oh, you got that one. Okay, I thought
Oh,
you had a little bit
oh,
there.
oh, yes, I'm sorry. This is so
Yeah, you're
important. It's okay to take a break. The
Oh,
to-do
yeah,
list will be there, y'all.
absolutely. Sure will. Okay, resiliency. We are just going to talk a little bit about what is resilience. You know, it's really a person's ability to bounce back in response to hard and challenging times. And that doesn't have to mean a catastrophic event. I think that we experience and demonstrate resiliency every single day in our day-to-day life. We work through things. I say this to my kids all the time. I say it to myself all the time. I can do hard things. We can do hard things. And so we're all walking into this room, into this Zoom room, if you will, today, carrying something. And it's not trivial. I always say comparison is the thief of joy. I think one of the things we've been sort of programmed to do in our culture is to compare our problems to other people's and say, it's not that bad. And I think that that is also really exhausting, can really wear on us. So as we think about resiliency, just thinking about our burdens, our personal burdens that we carry and our joys, and thinking about every day the little ways that we show resiliency and bounce back. Whitney is going to take us through 4 habits of resilient people.
So these are 4 habits that we hope that we, ourselves included, and that we all can commit to choosing to do these things to help build resiliency within ourselves. And they're recognize hardships, remain hopeful, reframe view in relationships. So again, resilience is just that idea that we can bounce back from hard things. And God really did create us with the capacity to recover from difficulties. And so the first one is recognizing hardships. We did that at the beginning. If you when we gave you that minute timer, you thought, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, this is really busy. That was recognizing hardship. And so it's important for us to do that, because when we recognize hardship, we're then able to begin to start to realize, okay, I maybe need to come up with a solution. I can recognize, something's hard, and what can I do? We can also recognize our past hardships. This can help us to celebrate the resiliency we've demonstrated in life. We're able to celebrate our strengths. And when we can reflect back on how we have bounced back from hardship in the past, we're better, poised to be able to have the confidence to bounce back when a hardship comes our way, in the present day and in the future. So we might pretend like everything's okay, but it's important for us to create space for ourselves, and again for our students to, that things sometimes aren't always okay, and we can say this is hard. And again, that helps us to be able to find ways to address those challenges, to begin to improve the situation. The second thing is to remain hopeful. So we're not getting stuck in recognizing hardships. We're saying what's going on, and then we're choosing the hopefulness attitude. And so it's really just having a positive view on the future. This is what invites hope. Hope in turn helps us to cope with current hardships and helps us to recognize signs indicating that there's a possibility that things can change for the better. It can inspire us to find solutions. Hope is really the cure for fear. And every person in the world, has encountered hardships and will encounter hardships. But when we place our hope in God, He renews our strength and gives us the ability to bounce back. Isaiah 40:30-31 says, even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. So we're reminded that all of us will become tired, will become weary, and have hard times. But when we place our hope in God, He gives us strength and renews us and helps us to keep moving forward. The third habit of resilient people is reframing view. Hope gives us
my favorite one.
Me too. Because I
We
think
do
I think
this
this
for
is
each
like,
other all the time, don't we?
I know. And I think this one is like, it's the action, right? Like we've had the mindset, and now we're choosing to reframe and make a choice here. And so the hope gives us the ability to have that reframing mindset and helps us to bounce back. And we often use the image of, a camera. You can zoom in and see one perspective, or zoom out and see a different perspective. And so it's just all about changing perspective, changing focus can help us to focus on, what we have versus what we lack, can help us to see things from the positive side of things. It's an intentional change, though, because that sometimes is not easy, and we're going to name that. That's hard at times. But when we choose to look at our stories through the lens of hope rather than focusing on negative, we're typically able to find, the positive way out and see and, make our way to the other side. The final habit of resilient people is relationships. And relationships is really all about connection and belonging. We are the most technologically connected, but socially disconnected society that's ever existed. And, in some ways it can be really great. Like, we're connecting from all over on this Zoom today, which is an incredible thing that we get to do. But at times the disconnection can be really challenging for us in terms of making sure that we are having points of positive connection with people. And so there's some science that talks about, when we think about our students and we think about resilient students, we all need supportive relationships. But science shows that young people who do well, despite having serious hardships, they've had at least one supportive adult in their life, which for us as educators, that's something that's an incredible opportunity that we have, to be that supportive adult for our students. And it's all about creating that sense of belonging, having powerful, connections with others. And really, relationships is one of the most powerful predictors for how strong a person's resilience is. And so for us, just making that commitment to our communities that we serve in, to each other, to our families, to engage in positive relationships, it's only going to help build our resilience and the resilience of those around us. And so making sure that we know who our people are, who are we the people for, and just really showing up our best in relationships is such a powerful thing for us.
Yeah, Whitney and I talk about that a lot, just the power of being cared for, but equally the power of caring for other people. Just having the experience and intentionally caring for other people is such a huge blessing. And as educators, we do it every day, but acknowledging that and recognizing the gift in that is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I promised on this next one that we were going to do a little explaining. So let me talk about ownership. We believe that you have to own your part. You really have to take ownership of your emotional health. And we actually use ownership we're going to share a tool with you a little bit later about how we own our part, even in contributing to stress, if you will, or to contributing to situations. And so when you own your part, it's about making choices. You can't just say, I'm going to have amazing emotional health. You have to think about your decisions and your actions and even your reactions to situations. And so being willing to see how you contribute to stress is really important. Sometimes I'm contributing to my own stress. I am choosing to sort of spin out on something. And so taking that pause and saying, okay, I got to own this. I'm the only person who can slow this down. And then also the ownership of contributing to collective stress. If there is a situation where people are, trying to create those, to create the space for rest for themselves, and you recognize that effort, really own your part in helping support that, and to tamp down your contribution to collective stress. Willingness to compromise, being self-aware, sometimes can show up as ways of ownership. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes you don't realize that you're contributing until you stop and take that pause and really think about it. I know this time of year I can find myself. I just saw this funny little reel or whatever that someone sent me on Instagram, and it said moms at Christmas, and it was like they're either going with the flow or they're freaking out. And I think that's sometimes me, because I love Christmas. I love the connection to our faith and being able to really sit in that space. But then it's very easy to have like 45 people pulling at your time and needs and feeling overwhelmed and like, we've got to get it all done. And so I can find myself on the defensive or just, on the precipice of losing control of my stress. And so taking that moment and really owning my part is a great way to remember that you do have control there and that you can manage those things. The next thing is staking your claim on joy. You are we know that in situations, in human to human situations, we mirror emotions, and you are a contributor to that. We see it amongst our students in the classroom. We see that if we come in happy and joyful, then that's contagious, and conversely, so is negative. But you can stake claim on your joy. You cannot let other people steal your joy. It's hard, and sometimes it requires. I always say, sometimes I'm in my head and it's happy here. I have to kind of just disconnect from the situation and think about why I'm there and what's important to me and how I can see joy. And I have to actively look for it. But we just want to encourage you to remember that that is a piece that you can decide to respond to or react to. And so we would like for you to think about ways that you can respond in just the way you want to show up. And for most of us, I think we could agree that would be in a joyful way or a way that brings joy to yourself and others. Whitney's going to talk a little bit now about what, controlling the controllables and thinking about that. And she even has a holiday edition that I'm going to share with you, which is pretty fun.
I sure do. So this is really based on one of my favorite exercises that I used as a school counselor that is so simple that you can recreate really regarding any topic. And it's this idea of the circle of control, and that we can only control the things that are within our control. And there's a lot that we spend time worrying about that's outside of our control. It's born out of Dr. Stephen Covey's idea of the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. Basically, I only need to worry I only need to be concerned about the things I can impact within that circle of control. The things that are outside that I can't impact, it's okay for me to release those. And so I think one of the things I know about myself is I can be a people pleaser, and I want to make sure that everyone else is okay, sometimes to my own detriment. And I don't like when there's tension. I'm one of 6 kids, big old Catholic family, and like want to make sure everybody's getting along and everybody, everything's smooth. And if it's not, is it my fault? And it's not. And I have to let that go. And I think sometimes we can find ourselves stuck there. And so this idea of the circle of control, I found this holiday edition and I just couldn't help myself. The idea is that things like in the middle, what I can control is things like my boundaries. I can control how I care for myself. I mean, financial stress is real this time of year. We can control that. We can control how we treat ourselves and how we spend our energy. I can't control shipping and delivery times. I can't control the actions and behaviors of others or travel delays or all those things. Those things I might spend a lot of energy worrying about, but it's not going to serve me if I can't impact those things. And so I can show up better for myself and for others when I choose this mindset to just, really spend my energy focusing on the things that I can control and influence. I used this type of, you could basically draw a little donut shape on any piece of paper. Probably the most common topic I used this exercise with my students was all about friendships, and we would talk all about relationships and the things that we can and can't control. If you're looking to use this in, holiday related or in any kind of way, in personal life or with students, typically the first thing I would ask them is, can I control the weather? And then they would say no, and that would go in the outside. And then from there, we would have the most rich conversation as we're unpacking whatever topic was kind of weighing on them. Super easy, but super impactful exercise that I think lets us kind of take a deep breath at times and just release things that maybe we're spinning our wheels, kind of trying to control.
Okay, so the next one is gratitude. Gratitude is viewing things through the lens of what we have rather than what we lack, what we don't have. And Whitney's going to talk to you a little bit about the psychological benefits of gratitude and then the health benefits.
Yeah, gratitude really in its simplest form is just a state of thankfulness. And it's really powerful. There's tons of research on the power of gratitude. One research article from 2011 by Emmons and Mishra called Why Gratitude Enhances Well-Being, What We Know and What We Need to Know. I love they concluded that there's considerable evidence that gratitude builds social resources by strengthening relationships and promoting pro-social behaviors, which is all the kinds of things that we want to see in our social relationships. So when we look at the benefits for practicing gratitude, what we see is it creates stronger connections and stronger relationships, greater resilience. These are things we've talked about. These are things that are going to help us in times of busyness and hardship. We actually see those who practice gratitude regularly reporting lower levels of anxiety, lower levels of depression. We see greater job satisfaction, greater productivity in their work, increased helpfulness, and all those pro-social behaviors. Practicing gratitude is also shown to improve our sleep, improve our mood, experience less fatigue. We're less susceptible to burnout, even lower inflammation in our bodies, which is like so cool that that's been studied by so many different researchers, and that consistently shows up. Because what happens is when we express gratitude or we receive gratitude, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, which are two crucial neurotransmitters that are responsible for our emotions, and they make us feel good. They can enhance our mood immediately, and they actually make us feel happy from the inside. And gratitude and negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, and worry, they simply cannot exist in the same moment. And so practicing gratitude is really a protective factor that helps to improve our overall mental wellness. And so when we consciously practice gratitude on a regular basis, it helps to really strengthen those neural pathways, and hopefully you ultimately get to create like a permanent grateful and positive nature within ourselves. When you look at like the brain and how, that fight flight response, really our brains are designed and hardwired oftentimes to like keep ourselves safe. And so we might be on the lookout for what's not good. And so we have to sometimes train to look for the good. And that's what a gratitude practice can help us do. And that part of our brain to keep us safe is important and healthy, but we want to make sure that we're on the lookout for good. And so it can help us to also just grow and create stronger emotional intelligence skills such as empathy, self-awareness, humility, and patience, which these are all things, that sound really good to me. And so I encourage you to start a gratitude practice. And so
there's so many that we're going to give you in a few minutes. That'll be
sure
great.
Are. And there's so many ways to do it. There's no right or wrong way, whether it's like telling somebody, just thinking about it for a few minutes, jotting down, 3 things each day, something as simple as, your first sip of coffee or whatever it is. So lots of ways that we can practice gratitude. But when you look at science, it is proven to make so many positive impacts on our overall health.
Absolutely. Okay, so now it's time to tool up. One of the things that if you've ever attended one of our webinars before, we always try to give some really good applicable sort of data and research and set the stage for what's going on and the why behind it. But we also like to tool you up and leave you with things that you can take into your life, into your classroom, and really put into practice. So let's get started. Do you feel the tension rising? Sort it out. This is a tool that we actually use all the time, and I use it with my family, mainly because I started using it through work, and it's awesome. It's just a great way when you're having trouble communicating, or when there's been miscommunication, or when there's a misunderstanding, or you're just really having trouble making a connection, and it starts to feel like we're not hearing each other. This is a great tool. So it's obviously an acronym. We're going to start with see the problem, own your part. I told you we were going to talk about ownership again, resolve the conflict, and tool up. So let's look at each of these. And then again, this is a tool that you can just take right back into your classroom or use with your loved ones this holiday season. Okay, so the S stands for see the problem. And in that situation, you're going to want to come to the conversation prepared, and you're going to think about what happened and how big the problem is. And you might stop right there because you might realize that the problem really isn't that big. If you go back to the root of it, It may have just been something silly that just, kind of snowballed, if you will. But if you can identify the problem and you think it does need to be addressed and you want to work it out so that you can find resolution, ask yourself, how did the situation make you feel? So you're going to identify the problem and ask yourself how it made you feel. Okay.
Okay.
Go to the next one. And you're actually going to do all of these pieces by yourself, and then you're going to do them together as when you share. And I'll talk about that, how you bring it back together with the other person in a minute. But for the first part, let's just think about it as a reflective piece. For own your part, you're going to ask yourself, did I do something that I regret? You're going to try to figure out what you could own. Did you maybe not articulate something clearly? Did you maybe respond, react instead of respond? Did you maybe phrase something in a way that you could see could cause stress or upset? So just really parse through your role in it and be reflective and kind of think before you have this conversation with this person what you can own. It's really important here to think about compromise and recognizing that we all have, we all contribute to situations. Okay. The next piece is resolve the conflict. So this is when you're going to come together. And so you're going to have those first two pieces together. You're going to work on the S, sort it out, and you're going to work on owning your part. Then you're going to come together to resolve the conflict. And the first thing is one person's going to go, and the other person's just going to actively listen. And so you're going to talk through how you saw the problem, how you define the problem, and sort of how big it was. And then you're going to talk through what you can own about that problem. And when you're finished talking, then the other person is going to use they're going to have listened to you talk using your I messages. So you're not projecting how you feel on that other person. You're just saying that I saw the problem as this, and I did XYZ. The other person's going to have the same amount of time and they're going to do the same thing, and you're going to actively listen. And then you're going to move to the resolve the conflict piece, where you're going to actually start to think about how you can work through it. And repeat, like, I heard you say, thank you for owning, and you're going to come to that resolution piece. And then the last thing you want to do is tool up, because God designed us to live in community and made us all with gifts and talents and challenges and strengths. And so we're worth it. And we know over and over and over again that God forgives us. And so in order to forgive, we have to show that investment in each other. And not just apologize, but really start to have actions to move towards forgiveness and reconciliation, so that we can be whole and even better for the situation, and for being brave and honest to have these conversations.
Yeah.
So for tooling up, you're really going to think about together ways that you can avoid this next time, compromises that you're willing to make. And again, you're going to use those I messages, and you're going to actively listen. And then you're going to settle on, sort of some agreed terms to not have this happen again, and be able to move forward in a stronger and better way. You can feel resolution, which is really important and can reduce stress.
For sure. And I think, working through conflict and tension can be hard and sometimes even scary, but sometimes I think it really communicates, like, how much you care about that relationship, that you're willing to lean into the hard. So, when we're spread thin, sometimes we might not show up our best selves. And so it's just a really helpful tool to just remember we can sort it out if we need to.
Yeah. Promise you a gratitude tool, so here we go.
Well, and this one is like a double whammy, because it combines gratitude and grounding exercises. And so feel free to take a snapshot of this screen and share it with your class, or do this with yourself. Again, it's that idea of bringing ourselves back to the present moment, but expressing gratitude for the things that we see, the things we hear, smell, taste, and the things we can feel. This can be a really quick and brief exercise to boost gratitude in your classrooms or for yourself. And so encourage you to give it a try. We have one more gratitude exercise. So if you've got your phone handy, feel free to snag that QR code. This is going to take you to a landing page on the Frenzy website that kind of details this 30-day challenge in a little bit more detail. But essentially, it's a habit building exercise. And experts say, it takes 21 days to form a new habit. We're just under 21 days left in this year, but it's a great time to get a head start on healthy and new habits. And so this sheet you can print out, you can do it yourself, share it with your family or your class. Maybe, if you want to wait until the beginning of next semester, share this with your class. But essentially for 30 days, we're identifying things we're grateful for. I already shared all the positive benefits that practice can have, but here's a little turnkey tool that you can take and use right away.
Love it.
Me too. All right, and the last one we have, today is all about making sure that we are caring for our own wellness in the midst of the busy time of year, leaning into this Advent season with joy and anticipation. So let's make sure we care for ourselves. So this is just a little self-care assessment that we have. Again, that QR code will take you to the landing page where you can gain access to that. And it's going to assess all different types of wellness and how you care for yourself. By no means is it an exhaustive assessment. But just take note of habits. Maybe if you notice anything new that you want to start engaging in to better care for yourself, this is a great place to start to just kind of have that moment to reflect.
Yeah, and we've shared this tool with you before. So if you've joined us previously, I think we may have shared this about this time last
I
year.
think we did.
And one of the things I'll say, I love this tool. It's evergreen. One of the things I'll say about it is it's really designed to just bring, self-awareness to how you're caring for yourself. And then also helps you sort of manage how you're caring for yourself. Because if you know and you're aware, then you're going to be able to manage those things better. So it's really just, something for you to work through and help you be thoughtful and intentional as you navigate this season and the new year.
And that wraps us up.
Yes.
We wish you all a Merry Christmas and a blessed Advent season. We're at Frenzy, we love to be friends. So you have our contact information here, mine and Julie's. Feel free if you want to continue the conversation, chat with us about the presentation or Frenzy, you know how to reach us. And we would love to connect with you in the future.
Yeah, it feels like it'll just be, right around the corner. We'll all be connecting again at convention. So we'll see you there for NCEA. We're always look forward to times that we can actually see you in person, but we're just one Zoom link away. So if you'd like to connect, if there's ever anything we can do for you, we're certainly happy to do so and love helping care for schools and educators and children and just anybody in those Catholic school communities that we can lend a, be a thought partner with or lend some help. Thank you again for the work you do. God bless you and those you serve.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Angela.
I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. Thank you. I was just saying thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was such an enlightening topic to discuss. I think it's really important, especially nowadays. Mental health is often overlooked, so we really appreciate your thoughts on this topic. We learned a lot. I can speak for myself. This was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. So glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. But thank you to everyone who joined today. I link in the chat. That's the link to the survey that I was talking about earlier in our session. This survey should take no more than 5 minutes to complete. It's just to share some feedback on today's session. Helps us learn to improve our webinars, just to make sure we take some advice from all who's watching and we can make a better fit for all of you. So please take a moment to check that out. And also, if you would like to receive the certificate of completion, please put your name and email just to make sure that it gets sent to you, and also check your spam. Sometimes it does get sent to your spam, so just want to make sure you get that. And again, thank you for attending today's webinar. We appreciate you joining us. And if you'd like to visit any of our webinars and spend some more time with me, you can check out ncea.org/webinar. And again, Whitney, Julie, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you.
You did excellent.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully we can have you back for another session.
Anytime.
I'll see you next month. I
Yes.
have one next month talking how we can engage in parents and include parents in the work we're doing. So look it
Oh,
up.
I'll
Yeah.
see you then. I'll see you then. Well, thank you, ladies. Have a blessed rest of your week, and thank you everyone who joined.
Thank you.
Take
You too.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.